What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones, and the NBA Finals is in the books. We've got the draft June 22nd, free agency, the tampering period July 1st. Technically, it starts July 2nd. Right. Our good friend and our NBA insider, Jonathan Marshall, kind enough to join us, of course, sports reporter anchor at WMUR. He's still kind of, the dust is settled. I'm wondering if the Boston faithful up there is saying to themselves, probably would have gave Denver pretty good damn series here. And Denver beats, obviously, Miami in 5 to win their first NBA championship. Joker, the MVP. But is that kind of the sentiment, when the dust is settled, right? The Monday morning, not even the quarterbacking, the Monday morning crying.
You got to think, it's a lot of fan bases that are probably saying that, right? Milwaukee's, right? If Giannis doesn't get hurt, how does that impact things, I think just watching Celtics Twitter, a lot of it was, of course, Max Strus is horrible now, right? Of course, these guys aren't hooping like they were against us, right?
No doubt.
Coming into it, I kind of expected things to sort of level out for Miami because those guys were playing out of their minds, right? I mean, these are good players. Don't get me wrong. Caleb Martin stepped up huge, but they veered back to the regular season heat, the team that I saw throughout the regular season. And at a certain point, you're always going to go back to your average, I would say, at a certain point. It's only going to last for so long, right?
Yeah.
And so what you have here is, at a certain point, Jimmy Butler, the injury, I just felt like they were tired mentally, physically. You had a 7-game series,
100%.
Right? And it came to a certain point. We saw it in, the game the other night. If Jimmy's not going, if Bam is not going, who's that third person that you can rely on, right?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't rely on Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin. You can't rely on these guys to just one-on-one give me a bucket. You just can't, right? And so I think that's where Miami got, a little taken off course a little bit, but amazing run. I mean, this team was on the verge of getting eliminated in the play-in round. So to make it that far is still amazing to me.
Yeah. So while you were talking, I jotted down a couple of notes, and 100% agree with you. And this is kind of what I wanted to dive into this a little more. Is there something to be said? They were up 3-0 on Boston, right? That series ultimately went to 7 games. They won in 7. But if you think about it, they lost 3 straight. They won game 7. They lost game 1 of the finals, won game 2, and then lost 3 straight. 2-7, right? Their last 9 games, playoffs and in the NBA finals. Conversely, when you look at the run that Denver had, they really were not. Look, you win a championship, you win a championship. And I don't want to hear this crap. Well, look who they beat and look who they weren't. It doesn't matter. But from a tired and not tired standpoint, they swept the Lakers. Mm-hmm. They had time to rest. Mm-hmm. They went through Phoenix in 6. All right, maybe stubbed their toe a couple times, but swept and overmatched the Lakers. You can argue 1 game, 2 games were close, but still. And then they beat Miami in 5. They were a well-rested team. But the other thing too, Jonathan, is that they were just a better team. I mean, Joker, he's so physically imposing. It's funny because you're like, how many times are they not going to call fouls on this guy? But he can't be stopped. He had the complementary pieces. They had the role players. They had the bench. Murray did what he needed to do. When I look at Miami, tired team, so heavily relied on Butler. And I believe, I'm trying to think, it might have been Van Gundy the other night made the point where you can't win a series and you're not going to win this game when you're solely relying on role players to make big buckets. And then Butler, back-to-back threes, started to heat up a little bit. Jimmy buckets, here you go, had the horrible turnover. And that turnover to me is a microcosm of what Miami is. And because no player at that moment went to him to receive the basketball. And it was a horrible turnover at a critical junction of the game, even though Denver couldn't knock down their free throws until late. Miami couldn't knock down their 3-pointers until late. But Denver was just a better, more talented team. We would agree. Now, do you take anything away from the run that they had against those teams that, like, do we look at this championship and say it's watered down? Well, you beat Minnesota, you beat Phoenix, you beat the Lakers, you beat a team that overachieved in Miami. I think that's a load of garbage, man. You have to give a team their just due. Do you not?
You know what's funny, Q? I don't, Minnesota is like, whatever. You know how I felt about Rudy Gobert. Any team who has him, I just can't take serious. But it's funny because once the Lakers made those moves
Yeah,
and they saw the pieces fit, people were drinking the LA Kool-Aid.
100%.
History,
100%.
they were. They say, okay, these pieces make sense.
Here
They're
you go.
playing better.
LeBron's happy. Yep.
A lot of people were actually picking the Lakers to beat the Nuggets. Also, when Phoenix gets KD, what was the conversation? Golden State and Phoenix, these are the top two contenders in the West.
Bingo.
Meanwhile, Denver's the top seed from jump throughout the year in the West.
Yeah.
But it's Phoenix, it's the Lakers, it's Golden State. So why all of a sudden now, when Denver actually gets the job done, we're taking it away from them? But not too long ago, people were buying into Phoenix. People were buying into the Lakers. Golden State was a viable option for a lot of people. So you got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, they made the West look silly because they are the best team in the West. Point blank, period. They have been the most consistent team from game one. They proved it.
Yeah. I think it's just trying to push a certain narrative. Like I've heard even, people talk about, enjoy it, Denver. I mean, even in our backyard, Philly, I mean, some of these beat writers, some of these talking heads, I mean, you got to be freaking kidding me with this garbage. And you're still not going to give a team credit, because here's the problem with that. When it's not your team, you're going to piss on it. But then again, okay, did the Philadelphia Eagles have a really tough road going into the playoffs? They waxed my Giants and they friggin' knocked out every quarterback under the sun against San Francisco. So what? Come on, man. You can't play it both ways, right? You can't. So I can't, for the love of me, listen to people that sit there and say, I mean, Chris Mannix, who's supposed to be an NBA guy, sitting there not giving a Joker his flowers and saying this guy's not an all-time great. Like, what the hell are you watching? Like, what are we doing here? Why can't we appreciate this player? And I know it's a regular season award, but you watch him play, man. He's the best player in the NBA. He's the MVP.
Denver has been the best team in the West from game one. And obviously they've proven to be the best team in the NBA. They are the champions. Just look at their roster construction, right? Phoenix tried to go, they swung for the fences with KD, right? The Lakers made midseason changes. The chemistry is real. The lack of depth is real. So even in the basketball conversation, really looking at it, a team in Phoenix with no depth, you're relying on Booker and KD to do the heavy load, right? A team in LA, pieces just put together, chemistry is real. You look at the Nuggets team, a the top player in the league right now, right? Number 2, Jamal Murray, one of the best secondary options in the NBA.
Yeah.
Michael Porter Jr. You look at the chemistry that this core has, right? So those 3 pieces on top of a Bruce Brown, a KCP, just from a basketball conversation, how these rosters are constructed, Denver checks out in that category too. I mean, if you really want to talk basketball, chemistry, roster construction, guys knowing their roles,
head coach,
starring in their roles. We saw what Bruce Brown did. We saw what Kentavious Caldwell-Pope did. Those guys know what their roles are, and they stepped up. I can't say the same about the Suns. I can't say the same about the Lakers because AD is every other game.
No, and the Celtics spit the bit in a game 7 at home, mind you. That wasn't even a competitive game.
Coming into the series, I said Denver's clearly the more talented team, but they're also the anti-Boston because they're going to stay locked in. Michael Malone is going to have those guys ready. Yeah. Can't say the same about Boston. Boston has the talent, but mentally they have those lapses. Can't say the same about Denver. They're going to be locked in. And Miami cannot overcome the talent versus, in addition to a team that has the mental capacity to stay locked in against them. So that's where they lost, honestly.
Yeah, listen, you text me and I text you when we were talking about the spot today, and you're like, hey, man, they didn't have a chance. It reminded me of, and I'll bring it up, the 99 Knicks. Now, Patrick got hurt. They had that great run with Latrell, remember?
Yeah, Larry Johnson was good too, I think, the back.
Yeah, they had the 8th seed to bounce Allen, Houston, Miami, the whole thing. They beat Atlanta, then Indiana, but they lost, I believe, in 4. They won one game in that. I'm sorry, they lost in 5. I'm sorry, 5. I would have known they got swept. They lost in 5, and I still remember friggin' Avery Johnson from the corner of Madison Square Garden. Yeah. They boxed out Latrell, and he couldn't get a shot off. So they lost in 5. They were purely overmatched by a bigger, stronger, faster, better, more talented team, better coached team at the time. And that's exactly, I believe, we kind of saw. That's why I didn't think this finals was going to be competitive. No. I didn't.
No.
If Miami would have squeezed out another game, Denver's still winning this series in 6.
I never thought Miami. I mean, you give Miami respect because of their history
And
with
great run,
great run,
coach.
what Coach Spo has proven to be.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, in a pure basketball conversation, talent, it just doesn't match. And you have a guy in the Joker who impacts the game in so many ways, and they've built that roster in such a way that those guys play so well around him,
Yeah.
just physically. I mean, Aaron Gordon, they have nobody physically. You got the Joker, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. Like
That
these are
kid's a
guys
player.
that, yeah, I
Gordon's a
mean,
player.
he's a really good player.
Yep.
He found his perfect role. He knows his role. I mean, you got to think a core of Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Jokic, and Aaron Gordon. I mean, Miami had no chance.
Yeah.
They're trying out Cody Zeller. Cody Zeller, Q.
Yeah, it's
Saying.
tough, man. I mean, and you're trying to get production out of Bam. You've had some injuries. You're relying too much on Butler. You needed that Batman to the Robin. They just didn't have it. Denver, obviously, they'll be one of the odds-on favorite heading in to next season, and rightfully so, because there's a couple things. Look, we don't know how the West is going to shape up.
Right.
Because when you break down that conference, Golden State, it's crazy to think Golden State won the championship last year, isn't it? It feels like 5 years ago, but Golden State is getting older. That team's getting older. There's not always going to be sustainability. We have no idea what's going to happen if you listen to the commissioner talk about John Morant. I mean, and we talked about this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. He might get slammed with 40-plus game suspension. So that derails their season. Sacramento, they haven't been there before. Phoenix, what do we say about Phoenix? When we try to take them serious, what happens? Right? Then the Clippers, I mentioned Golden State, the Lakers. I mean, this conference, it's right there for Denver to own the Western Conference over the next couple of seasons. Now, I'm going to let them have their parade first before I start to say this is going to be a dynasty. I mean, let the ink dry, or clean up the ticker tape parade a little bit before we start to have this conversation. But man, I'll tell you, I would have maybe said Memphis and maybe Phoenix with 100% healthy all season Durant. But now we don't know what's going on, right? I mean, we talked a little bit about Paul in the past, and then Memphis with Morant. So there's a lot of question marks right now in the Western Conference. That leads me to believe that if you were a betting man right now, Denver's not a bad pick to come out of the conference next year.
Yeah, I mean, you just laid it out, Q. I mean, I'm looking at the standings right now, and Denver already has a head start because, like that trio of MPJ, Murray, Jokic, I mean, they're in their primes.
Yeah.
Like they're good. You mentioned a Golden State getting older. Phoenix, KD is getting older, right? So, and how can they even improve that roster? Do they have, I mean, I don't know, the salary cap, like when you're looking at these teams, how do we solve these issues with Phoenix? How do they get better? How do you improve that depth? Can they? Because if they come in with the same issues, I don't see this team beating a Denver in the 7-game series. I just don't. The Lakers are always going to be a player. We know how that goes, but still, another year for LeBron. AD, we know his health concerns, right?
Yeah.
So looking at the West as a whole, you mentioned it, John Morant, that's going to put them behind an 8-ball, regardless of how many games he misses, right? Sacramento, another year of experience. You expect them to still be in the mix. But, I mean, looking at it as a whole, honestly, a team that I really liked at the start of last year, even towards the end of, the previous season. But it all depends on one name, one person who's, if you've been on Twitter, you know what's going on with this guy. A little too much, honestly. I think the Pelicans.
Zion. Yeah.
I think Zion is the key for that franchise because with the roster makeup, with the veteran and CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, I love Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Dyson Daniels. They have a nice group of guys that can play so well around Zion, right? You have a great young coach in Willie Green. They were on the cusp of something. They were one of the top teams before the Zion injury and things got off the rails. I know he's in trade rumors now. They have to figure out what they want to do. But if they brought this team back, if they said, look, let's run this back one more time. Let's get Zion right. Let's see if he really locks into the gym this summer, is in shape. I think New Orleans has an opportunity to leapfrog a bunch of teams. I really do.
So, I mean, he's still banged up. He's still dealing with the hamstring. Never cleared on 5-on-5 or even full court 3-on-3.
Yeah.
That was prior to their matchup against, think about it. So, going into the play, this guy's never healthy. My point is, he played what, 25 games,
Yeah.
26, 27?
He's never available. That's
And
the
and
big
I
question.
hate to, yeah, I hate to bring this up.
Mm.
I'm wondering, yes, 24, 61, 29 games. I mean, come on, man. You're talking 114 games out of a
Yeah.
possible what, 240 and some change.
Yeah.
How much of the nonsense going on right now off the court?
Yeah.
I mean, do you really? You're trying to look. It's not on the level of Morant, but man, you got, I mean, everyone's coming out of the woodwork saying,
Crazy.
you know, it's he's got my kid, he's got my kid, he's doing this, he's doing that. You got porn stars coming out of the woodwork, and not in the good way. I mean, come on, man. I mean, enough is enough. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm just wondering how much of a does an ownership group or GM or people within a building look at a player that they believe can be a face of a franchise, but then you're like, accessibility, availability, and now this nonsense. Is it really worth the headache?
So far, no, because you mentioned the amount of games that he's played, right? Even this porn star, stuff, which is providing entertainment for us all on Twitter, right? um, Even before that, there was questions about his durability. Is he going to be in shape? With this, for me, it's like, Zion, off the court, where's your mind at? You're a professional. Are you taking your career serious? Because these are things that we've seen derail many athletes over the years. These things have derailed many athletes, many careers. They can have the most, no matter how talented you are. If you're not in shape, if you're not locked in the gym in the summer, if you're getting distracted by the women, the drugs, the alcohol off the court, it'll all pass you by. Trust me. We've seen it. And so Zion, the good thing is he's still young to get on track. Same with Ja, but sticking to Zion, he's still young to really lock in and refocus. But at this point, you got to wonder, like, where's your focus at, right?
Yeah,
like, focused on really being at your best, or are you just living it up, enjoying this lifestyle that your talent has afforded you?
Yeah, so this is probably not going to come out the right way, or it's probably not going to be a very popular thought, and I'm okay with it. I think I've mentioned this to you. There's two types of dogs. There's the DOG, and then there's the DAWG. Jimmy Butler's the DAWG.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Don't question him. Don't question him.
No. Zion, to me, I believe, is a dog. I think this kid has all the talent in the world, but he's got no ticker. He's got no heart. He's got no drive. He's got no ambition. And he's hurt. And I think he's caught up to the outside noises, what you alluded to. And I bet you, because now you're going to get the smoke screen with all the crap coming out with the porn star, this, that. You got the draft right around the corner. You got free agency coming up, all this stuff. I bet you'll start to hear stuff leak out that he thinks what would be best for him is the, quote, change of scenery.
I have an issue with that because you can change the scenery, but you can't change the person from within.
Hey,
you're running from something, but you're still here, right? You're not changing what's inside. You're not, same thing with the Ja Morant conversation, right? You can go to, I mean, you change the scenery. You're in New Orleans. Where do you want to go? You want to go to LA? You want to go to New York? Oh, that'll solve your problems, right? That'll with that media, like, as far as media is concerned, you're not getting press like that in New Orleans. You're not.
No, and but hence just go about your business. The same thing with Memphis. But then what do you're going to give a what? 3 first-round draft picks for Zion Williamson?
I don't even know why. I wouldn't even entertain giving up a top 3 pick for him. I wouldn't. Like, I don't even know if the guy's going to be ready to play a full 82-game season on a consistent basis. And is it going to get better as he gets older?
No.
Because as you get older, right? Body changes.
You can't stick him in New York. He'll be at scores every night. Are you kidding me? Frig out of here.
Media will let him have it. Are you kidding me? So with Zion, look, we look, we're entertained by the Twitter and the porn stars.
I'm not entertained. Yo, let me tell you, I'm not entertained by it. I think it's just so. I look at it this way because maybe I'm just getting older and cranky. I'm like, come on, man. You got all the talent in the world.
Yeah.
You got the world is your oyster. It's right there. You've got the money. You've got the talent. You've got everything right there for you. You can take it and grab it. And instead, you want to
Listen,
dabble and park your car in a couple different driveways and smoke and joke and do whatever you're doing with,
I texted a group chat. I said, look, all rookies in all pro sports should Derek Jeter should do a seminar on how to handle life. You know what I mean? You saw how Derek Jeter did it.
It's a different animal, man. It's a different animal.
Derek Jeter in New York and how he handled everything. No, you never heard any drama.
No, except sending baskets of flowers and fruit the next morning, but that's,
I mean, what a guy. What a guy.
God knows who was writing the notes.
Derek Jeter should do a class. They can take some notes from him on how to, limit the off the field, off the court distraction. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, listen, I'm with you. Jonathan Marshall joining us on a Wednesday edition of BYP with Q Rich Quinones here. Check out the YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q, Twitter as well. All right. So I mentioned with the draft, free agency, I guess now the talk is Bradley Beal wants out of Washington. There's potential rumors and trade talks, 3-time All-Star. It's amazing. Now, this is kind of the antithesis, right? This guy's in the first year of a 5-year, $250 million deal. Okay. Once out. And wait, this is genius. The no trade clause in the deal where basically he can potentially have say, what kind of package are you putting together for me? Because if you ship me out here and you've sent 6 players back, I don't want to go because it ruins my potential. I mean, think about that. Like, it's his agent or him. God give him all the credit in the world, man. Sure. Now, why do you want out of Washington for year number 1 of a 5-year, $250 million deal?
Because he knows they're not going anywhere, Q.
Well, I mean, you and I both know that, but then why'd you sign the deal?
I'm not turning down that money. I mean, look, when these guys sign these deals, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about Dame in Portland. Like, it's the same situation. When you sign this deal, no way in the world, in your right mind, do you think this team is competing against the top 3 teams in your conference? Come on. Like, the Wizards, when is the last time they've been relevant? Honestly. Like a true championship contender. And what's the vision? What's the direction? I don't know what this vision, I don't know what the plan is for a Wizards franchise. And there's a lot of teams like this. And so for Bradley Beal, first of all, if I was a GM of most of these teams, a lot of these deals wouldn't be happening. There's no way I'm signing Bradley Beal to that contract. I'm fully committing to the rebuild. Let's not even play around with this. Bradley Beal, you can go to wherever team you want to go.
Because we can avoid this. Because this is where we're going to be. Because we're not going to win. Right? We're putting everything in you per se. Now it's different in the NBA with the money and the contracts and everything. But to your point, you're right. If you're going nowhere, you're going to be that fringe 8th seed, 9th seed, 10th seed, 40 wins here and there. Maybe you win a playoff series in here, but it still screws your draft positioning, your draft status. It's NBA purgatory. Now, back in the day, if you got in, a little different, maybe you made a nice little run. We've seen it, but I think today's NBA is totally different because it's like a carousel. It's like a shuffling machine here in Atlantic City with these cards. I mean, the players just go from team to team to team. They're all mercenaries. And I know what you're saying. Of course, you're not going to turn down that type of contract, but it leads me to believe now, he's got beyond leverage. He's got say in everything.
Yeah. And you got to, I mean, I'm not sure. Bradley Beal is not a number 1 option on the championship team, right?
Nice player, not a superstar.
Player, not a superstar. And so wherever he lands, it has to be a position where he's not looked at as the focal point, right? And where are those places? I know Miami's being mentioned, right? To me, I think Miami may be the best option for him. I think that would be perfect for both sides, for Miami.
How about Philly? See what happens with Harden.
But
right,
even then,
what's the NBA? It's a 2-man game. It's pick and roll.
Yeah. If Harden leaves and you get Bill, how much of a ceiling raiser is Bill for Philly right now?
Well, okay, but when they made the move for Harden, they thought it was going to put them.
That's true.
In the NBA Finals.
And so I don't know if they're going to be that much better compared to the roster they had this year, right?
Yeah.
And it's not. teams just I feel like teams just want to go after the names and ignore the foundational pieces. That's where championships are really won. My issue with the Sixers roster is outside of the Maxis, the Hardens, and the Embiids, you got a bunch of one-dimensional guys, right? The Niangs, the guys who aren't that dynamic, right? Like there's no Bruce Brown on the Sixers roster. There's no KCP. There's no Aaron Gordon, right? These are foundational championship pieces that the Sixers have been lacking. And so the issue is not let's get a big name. The issue is, okay, we have this trio of talented guys. What about the secondary pieces? You know, like that's where I feel like they failed.
Yeah. And to your point, which is an excellent one, I think it goes back to when Brand was the GM. I mean, they're really bad at evaluating talent
and developing.
They really missed a boat or give up on a player or keep a player. They put all their eggs in one basket, i.e. Ben Simmons, and it's blown up in their face. You mentioned, some of the other marquee players. It seems as though every season now or every offseason, Damian Lillard's name pops out, Miami, Brooklyn, the Knicks. I mean, you're trying to find equitable trade partners right now. He's a very good player, but again, I've seen this before, right? I mean, we saw this with Kawhi after he won. We've seen this with George, who I've never been the biggest fan of. I mean, I think there's something to be said, like you said, where don't fall in love so much with the name on the back of the jersey. And in today's NBA, we just saw Denver. I mean, look, granted, you got a 41st pick in what 2014 draft was a joker.
Yeah.
And you don't think there are a bunch of teams kicking themselves watching what he's doing?
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about the big names. Sticking with Denver because I love how they've built this team and how they've added to it, right? Across the league, there's an Aaron Gordon on every team. There's a Bruce Brown on every team. A guy who maybe was a lottery pick or a first round pick, just was miscast.
Yeah.
Aaron Gordon was a high pick for Orlando, right? He was never meant to be a number one or number two. Looking at it now, right? Bruce Brown in Brooklyn. Watching him now is a totally different player. Like the confidence is there. The playmaking ability is there, right? And so the league is full of guys just waiting for that right role, that right opportunity. I think these organizations need to do a better job of scouring the league and say, okay, instead of getting a Bradley Beal, where's the next Bruce Brown? Where's the next Aaron Gordon? A guy who is just trying to find that perfect spot, the perfect situation, who, if we put him on this roster, can unlock so much for us as a team. And that's what Aaron Gordon and Bruce Brown have done.
So does Dame, you look at a team like Miami that just lost in the NBA Finals, it's evident that they lack shooting. It's evident that they really don't have a long-term answer when it comes to a full-time point guard. Bring the ball up the floor, right? Touching the ball the most. I mean, can a player like Lillard put them over the top or at least get them back in the Eastern Conference Finals?
I think so. I mean, you saw the run they had this year, right? Look at the competition. What is I think the East is still wide open, right? Yeah. You expect Milwaukee to be back because they have Giannis. Boston will be there, right? Will they be serious in the playoffs? Who knows? I still don't know, right? The Cavs, you got to think, will be better, right?
Bulls, young team.
The Knicks will be there, right? They'll be better. I think Philly will be there with Embiid and Maxey. They'll be there. I think if you add a Dame to a Miami situation with Jimmy Butler, with Bam Adebayo, if they're able to keep Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, that is a viable roster. So I think for them, they're looking at the Eastern Conference like, look, which team should we really fear at this point? Yeah. Right? We trust in Spo. We're proven. Jimmy Butler has proven to have the ability to step up in big moments. He just needs that number 2 scoring pop. And we know Dame can go off of 40 and 50 at any given moment, right? Yeah. So you add that element, take away the playmaking responsibilities off of a Jimmy Butler. Now we're talking. So I think the East, to me, is wide open. If I'm Miami and I want to maximize this current situation, I think you go get a Dame. That, to me, that makes sense.
Yeah, and when you think about it packaging wise, for salary's sake, you mentioned Bam, Butler. You're not packaging. I can see like a Lowry, a Hero.
Hero would definitely be involved.
Oladipo.
Yeah.
Right. Oladipo. Right, because you're not you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? You're not going to take 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back. So, and I thought it was another really good point you brought up about having that essential point guard, right? Who can bring the ball up the floor and allow Jimmy Butler to do what he does best,
Right.
and get that spacing for him.
And
Yeah,
it puts Gabe Vincent in, because Gabe Vincent is their starting point
yeah,
guard. If you add a Dame, Gabe is a heck of a microwave scorer option off the bench. You know what I mean? So it puts guys in their proper place on the grand scheme of things as far as being a 6th or 7th or 8th guy,
What now? This we talked a little bit about this, but there was speculation, but it hasn't been official yet. Now it seems as though, look, Chris Paul is still with the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
So there was speculation, either trade or release. They haven't released him. I think because they're starting to sit back and say, well, wait a second, let's see if we can get something back right now after watching the NBA Finals. Why? Because Miami needs what? A legit true right. So now all of a sudden they're kind of, all right, maybe we can start to reinvestigate. But can you imagine if Paul was released? If you're Miami, how do you not?
Yeah. I mean, you have to upgrade that point guard spot. Any option, a Dame, obviously you want Dame. Chris Paul isn't the Chris Paul we've known over the years, right? But as far as his mind state, his thinking, his ability to control the game, it's still there, right? He's not a perfect player at this point, right? But just having that presence, that experience, a guy that can control things when things are getting out of sorts, right? That leadership on the floor, like a true floor general, which they don't have, which I think has hurt a lot of teams, mainly Philly. I don't think they have a true floor general. They haven't had that, right? A guy that can
can't have Harden bring up the ball.
Yeah, Harden's a scorer, and he's a scorer, right? He's just able to handle the rock. But he's not a true floor general, right? But Chris Paul is that prototype. He is the prototype. When we're talking about true floor generals, Chris Paul is there.
And what hurts too is, when you don't have that legit point guard to bring up the ball, walk it up the floor, and all of a sudden, you got someone dribbling around. Think about some of these key possessions, right? And when you watch, you can't even get in your offense. You can't even set your offense because the shot clock is already at 10. Right. So it's just, I mean, and it's funny because that's the one thing I've noticed now, being even more closer to the game, calling games with the TBL on any level, G League, NBA, college, whatever. You need a defined guard to break down defenses, to get the ball, to distribute and do what they do best. And it's very hard to run an offense. I mean, you start to lock down with some of these teams, half court offense, they're screwed. Got about a minute before I let you get out of here, and always appreciate a couple moments. I don't believe we touched on the Sixers hiring Nurse.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just kind of wanted to, first thing is, I was thinking there's no way I would play a futures for Embiid winning the MVP, because this guy's going to run him into the frigging ground. He's going to play 50 games. So do you have any concerns right there with Nurse right off the bat? Do you like the hiring of Nick Nurse?
I actually like the hiring of Nick Nurse. As far as the options available, I feel like he was one of the better options, right?
Yeah.
Now, watching his Raptors teams, I always loved their personnel and how they played. A bunch of 6'6" and above guys that can run, defend, the ball up the court, right? I loved how they developed their guys. So that's, as a Sixers fan, that's what should excite you, right? Obviously the personnel is different, so I want to see how he adjusts, because you don't have that versatility. You don't have that size, that athleticism that you had in Toronto. So I want to wait and see how Nick Nurse adjusts. But what I've always liked about his story is that he's coached all over the place, right? And so I can appreciate a coach who's coached in different situations and different environments, having to adjust. Okay, like I'm in the G League, I'm in a far out country, I don't know anybody. Like he's experienced different things, different environments, different rosters, different levels of talents, to where I feel like his ability to adjust to different rosters, to different personalities, to in-game adjustments, right? I think that's where I think this hiring gets an A for me. And I just think it's time for the Sixers as a franchise to get up to date to today's game, coaching wise, personnel wise. And I think this is the start. I think they're way behind. They're behind. They got to get up. They got to get. I mean, watching a Denver team and how they play, and Michael Malone, how he coaches, it's time for Philly to sort of get up to speed a little bit. And I think Nick Nurse helps them with that.
All right, fair enough. You put a ball on it. Excellent stuff. Next week we'll get into the draft, free agency right around the corner as well. Jonathan Marshall at John_Marshall3, and of course, sports reporter anchor WMUR. Still licking the wounds up there in Boston, but probably getting ready. What do we got? I think we have 10 more weeks and then the NFL season.
Hey, DeAndre Hopkins might be coming to a city near me.
Oh.
At the end of the day, all these teams, I just laugh at because there's only one team that's really. We'll talk about it. We'll talk. You already know. We're coming back for vengeance, Q. We're coming back. We're winning it this year. Yeah. And you guys got to take care of Saquon. He's your whole team. Take care of him.
Listen, the running back position in the NFL, you don't pay running backs. It is what it is. So I got killed last year because I said Barkley was shot, done. And I look like a jackass. I mean, total 100% off. But you got to do it another season in a row. And first of all, they offered you 14. You probably should have taken it. I get you don't like the tag. It's a sign of disrespect. And he's probably, to a man, pissed off that the quarterback got 160 million, 40 million, a year, whatever the hell it was, guaranteed. Nice. And, Saquon's in there saying, I'm the whole friggin' offense. I get it. I agree 100%. But I know this, being a Giants fan for so many years, pretty much my whole life, as soon as I popped out, this team never pays running backs.
Man, Tiki Barber, man, no love for the backs.
I do the pod with Brandon Jacobs. I got love for the backs. He would even tell you.
I need you guys to show some love to Saquon, but I mean, look, Brian Daboll is the best thing that happened to this team. That's just what it is.
Went through McAdoo, Shermer, and Judge.
Yeah,
I mean,
Daboll's the best thing that happened to that franchise.
Yeah, no doubt. Just got to win some games. Got to win some games.
Got Daniel Jones at quarterback, though.
Come on, man. See, that's what I'm saying.
Come on, Q.
Right there, that's just a horrible, parting shot. That's
Daniel Jones.
What did he go on the road in Minnesota and win a playoff game
against Kirk Cousins, who I don't think there's much separation.
So hold on a second. You know what you're doing right now? You're doing exactly what I despise from the other talking heads, sitting there talking about Denver Nuggets and taking away from their championship. So you're taking away from the Giants going on the road because he played against Captain Kirk.
Listen, I'm on the record as being fully not on the Captain Kirk train. I've been saying it for years.
But your fandom as an Eagles fan is just protruding, and quite frankly, it's actually a little disturbing.
Kirk Cousins isn't good.
Did the Eagles play a quarterback in the NFC Championship?
No, because we knocked them out. That's what defenses do. Get a better O-line.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man.
And we got the Georgia Bulldogs coming too. Woo. Come on, Q. We're ready.
You don't win.
NFC is ours by land. I'm not worried about it. No. NFC is ours by landslide. The Commanders, no. Stop.
Listen.
Sam Howell? Come on. No. Y'all got to do better. At least make it interesting for us. You know what I mean? Daniel Jones, Sam Howell, Dak Prescott. What are we doing? I'm not having fun. It's not fun anymore. It's not fun.
It's like dominating on Saturday at YMCA.
I'm not having fun.
Right.
Gotta wait till we get to the Super Bowl to have fun. You
don't win in June. By the way, you like the June, listen. You like the YMCA analogy.
I do.
You're juking guys out of the jock, but you can't finish the bunny layup. That's the YMCA finish.
We're locked in. We're locked in this year, Q.
All right,
Book it.
We got the draft. We'll get into it next week. Jonathan Marshall, always kind enough to join us on a weekly edition of BYP. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, Q.